It's just like a burning torch in a storm, like a little flower bloom in a home. 強く確かな意志を掲げ、時に優しくあればいい。
No, wait!
I missed you.
Come back!
I'm missing you. 滲む景色に膝を抱き、胸を張せる時 I'll come back. I promise. Listen to me, cleave your way again, again. 誓いの日々が最後に放つ未来、歪んだ空に描いた手のひらたちが放らす Your love、青には灯火だけを
Good evening, Liberacian City, and welcome to our very special Infernianniversary Iii Livestream, where we'll celebrate 3 years of the campaign of Infernia. I'm your host, Daniel McLaren, and I appreciate every one of you for joining in today as we not only take a look at what has happened, but also the future that is to come. Anyway, take a seat, sit back, and relax, because today we'll have a special live stream just for you. And with me is another very special guest. In fact, I've managed to get the Guildmaster of Infernia itself, Miss Sierra Ortwin, on the show. Please give it up for Miss Sierra Ortwin.
Hey, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for coming, Sierra, and thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know that you've just been promoted to Guildmaster. How does that feel?
Oh, it was kind of shoved onto me, so...
Right, and I'm assuming there's also the responsibilities of that, but also the joy of just being a guildmaster of a guild that you love. I'm sure that there'll be many more days to see good sun and good shine as we continue forward, carrying out the flame of Infernia. But before we do that, why don't we take a look back at the history of what happened in the guild? Would you do that with me, Sierra?
Memory lane. Let's do it.
Great. Just before 3 years ago, a little bit, just after 3 years ago, in fact, the year was 27 AL, and Infernia, who had been a very popular guild at the time, suddenly came to an abrupt end, as 10 of their most crucial and most powerful and most members and leadership suddenly vanished on a mysterious X-Class quest that currently has its details veiled from the public. Going on this dangerous mission, these 10 liberators all vanished, and they left the rest of the 90 liberators in Liberacian City, in Infernia, completely headless without leadership. They were confused about what to do, and eventually, after many months of search and rescue, after the results have turned completely empty, they decided to disband, leaving only one woman, Alexis, to be in the guild of her own volition. And I have a quote from her, and it states, I have nowhere else to go. That was your previous guildmaster, was it not, Sierra?
Oh, yeah, she was, more like the flyer master, if you know what I mean.
I heard that she's worked long and hard to hand out flyers to try and get people back into Infernia. How has that process been?
Well, it's been a a process, yeah.
Doesn't sound like it's been very fruitful, to say the least.
We've recruited 3 or 4 new members.
Right. And that moment actually happened just a couple of months ago. It was a sunny day in Liberacian City, but not everything was sunny. In fact, something devious was cooking up in the darkness. There was a terrorist attack on the train, the sky rail that had been recently unveiled to the public. Do you remember this incident?
Oh, is that what my hair looks like from the back?
Yeah, apparently so. Although, more than your hair, there's some devious criminals here trying to abduct hostages in the city skyline, asking for a mysterious individual named Eileen Dubar. But, thanks to the help of you and many liberators who were there, a couple of other liberators who were there, you managed to subjugate them and stop the hostage situation from turning any worse than it could have been. Do you have any reflections on this particular time?
Yeah, make sure you check your surroundings when you board onto the sky rail.
I see. It's really certain and very dangerous to just walk in without checking your surroundings, and I absolutely agree. And although you guys did a brilliant work of taking care of these 2 hostage takers, it wasn't to be. They originally disguised themselves as Wyvernclaw members, and obviously were found out not to be. But soon, another area of Liberacian City came under attack, the Liberacian University, as a terrorist attack blew its science department to smithereens. I have information that you were there on site during that day. Was there anything that you'd like to describe about how it happened?
Yeah, the announcer came on, Victor Markov, and then I was inside the building, actually. But we were saved by an elf with an umbrella.
I see. Thankfully, pretty peaceful resolution, although many people did die. And I think condolences go out to those. After the university was destroyed, there was a prerogative to find the hostage taker, the terrorist that was behind these attacks. His name was later figured out to be Victor Markov. But during that time, there was a bit of contention between you and another guild known as the Pantheon of Avalon. Do you have anything to say about them?
Well, at the time, I didn't actually know that they were as strong as they were, and I might have said a few ambitious words.
I see. You guys were essentially competing, right? Competition is pretty prominent around the guilds that are in Liberacian City. Nonetheless, there's a lot of job opportunities that fly by. But competing with them, you tried to take the terrorist situation into your own hands by a urgent local area quest. Traveling to the farm, you then proceeded to apprehend and defeat Victor Markov's goons before ultimately apprehending them. Any special shoutouts you'd like to say to your guild members who traversed with you and defeated Victor Markov on that day?
Yeah, actually, if it wasn't for Jones, then I don't think any of us would be here.
And Jones would be your?
One of our guild members.
I see. And Jones was actually a military man himself, was he not?
Yeah, he actually worked with Victor and the Enforcers.
Right, that must have been a tough situation, picking between someone that was his colleague and essentially a friend, but also someone who's turned evil, and their backs on the Liberacian City. Moving along. Soon after, Infernia started their guild initiation process, which required them to gather a certain amount of points to hit the guild quota so that they could officially become a guild. Was there anything in this process that you thought was worth sharing?
Oh, funny story, actually. One of our other guild members, Komarebi was his name, tried to recruit another guild master into Infernia, but that didn't work out.
Oh, really? Well, you can't be part of 2 guilds at once. That's just part of the guild law. But I'm kind of curious as to how that happened. Although, let's just assume that it might have been a little bit of forgetfulness on some individuals' parts. As we can see here, this is one of your associate guilds, One Way Road. You guys made friends with each other in various contexts, both starting somewhere close to the bottom. And what do you think about them?
Oh yeah, they're a great bunch. They're lovely kids. Unfortunately, one of them recently passed away helping us with a dark guild. So.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Would you mind telling me who it was?
Reyes Braveheart. His name was Reyes Braveheart.
Right, the man in green. I see. Must have been a terrible time. Well, you know what else is also a terrible time? The people suffering in an overdose verge, not getting enough stuff to eat, and scampering for food scraps. Some of these members are shown here, as I heard you took a quest that involved helping one of the kids find one of their headphones. Was that a quest that you were particularly looking forward to, or was that something that you prefer not to do again?
Well, speaking of taking things, that woman there, Catherine, actually took our money for information. And it was an experience, for sure.
It sounds like you had various social difficulties with the amount of quests that you have, but also it was a fruitful time discovering and developing your ability as a liberator. It was soon after that things fell into a more serious tone. You guys took care of a collector's guild that was collecting subtle items to trade. One of the people with you were called Jason Denmark, and I have reports that he was once asked for your help, per se, to retrieve his sister's stopwatch. Do you remember anything about this specific incident?
Oh yeah, there was Hex Hunters involved in everything. Smashed through the window and, maybe I'm not supposed to talk about that, actually.
Right. This is the first time you guys heard of a mysterious masked hex hunter codenamed Lapse. We now know his name is actually Hisashi. He's certainly a mysterious man, to say the least. And also, this was the very, very subtle clue of the Dark Guild known as Coven Compass slowly coming into view. And speaking of Coven Compass, soon after, one of their members actually had the audacity to influence one of your potential recruits into giving up a valuable item that belongs to Infernia, the Maze Crystal. And he would probably go on to use it for devious activities if he wasn't stopped. His name was Walpurgisnicht, although that's what people knew him as, although he had another alibi by the name of Weiss. Did you know much about this man?
Yeah, and actually, Wally there, he was that girl Elucia's, cat. And it turned into, well, him.
I see, so not only can he transform to a malicious animal, he is also a disguising, devious individual. And you guys fought by the bridge near the Runewoods, before eventually overcoming him with the help of the previously mentioned Hex Hunter, Hisashi. Do you remember anything else about the incident?
Well, maybe I probably shouldn't talk about that, seriously.
Right. We gotta keep these private matters under wraps, and I understand that you're under a strict code of conduct. Afterwards, you guys have made even more friends, this time with the higher-up guild known as Wyvernclaw. Apparently, one of your members, Jasmine Johnson, was actually recruited into the internship program for Wyvernclaw, being able to be part of the most influential guild, so to speak, the most popular guild to date, for a week. How did you feel as that process was one of your guild members had actually been taken and recruited into another guild?
Well, at Infernia we consider each other family, so it was an opportunity for Jasmine, and maybe she could help her parents out. Plus, I have some cousins and a sister clan over in Wyvernclaw.
I see. So it was surprisingly cheerful time as you saw the opportunities that could arise for her joining the guild. And an opportunity did arise during the Guild Rush incident where you guys picked up a quest, an X-Class quest, actually the Wyvern Claw people did, that talked about a specific, almost a clinical drug trial that would take place in Castella City. This drug trial, this noise trial, was offered by Valentrio Industries, alongside a very, very large, hefty sum of money should the trial be completed by some of you. Apparently, Infernia also somehow got their hands on the same quest, thanks to the previous member that we called Jason Denmark. What was your reaction to this incident?
Well, it was definitely a step up from picking flowers and herbs and, saving cats out of trees, and there was a plane ride involved.
Right, this would be your first S-Class quest, and that sounds very exciting. And to accompany that, you guys actually got to go on a brand new, technologically advanced Dragon Sail, an experimental aircraft that was powered entirely by vibrations and magical sound. How did this trip go out for you?
Well, I lost the magicite core to my gravity board. I don't have very fond memories of it.
And it seems like this ship didn't take you, in fact, to your destination. It, stopped earlier at a certain other point in time. Where did you guys end up instead of Castella City?
In the free wilds. Yep, in the free wilds. In the dead of night, in the rain.
Wow, that sounds absolutely horrible. I know I wouldn't like to be out in the dead of night. Certainly not in another foreign country, and certainly not while it's cold and wet. How did you guys manage to survive such an incident?
Oh, I've got a tip for any survivors or listeners. Stay away from thorn bushes.
Thorn bushes. They sound like you've been viciously attacked by one.
You could say that.
But fear not. These are some memories I've gotten from one of your guild members, Hanako. Speaking of thorn bushes, a thorn in her side was constantly the fear of survival. And as she watched her friends die, and her sister told her that the only way to live was to kill or be killed, she took up a different stance to that in response to her sister's words. Was this member of yours, Hanako Mori, did she play a significant role in your survival in the free wilds?
Yeah, you should have seen it. There was this moment with the stars lighting up. It was amazing.
Incredible. Almost like celestial magic, so to speak. Well, morning soon came to the free wilds, and you guys have survived a dangerous and cold night. And not only did you survive, you managed to make your way to find, she found you. One of the 5 heroes herself, Ame no Uzume no Mikoto. Not only did she help you recover your energy, she also led you to one of your guild members' father, where you eventually traveled with them to their camping grounds, Pure Ugojiji. How did you find that place?
Well, it was definitely interesting to meet my Meister at the time's family, but the main thing that we learned from this was Goto said that we really needed to know each other, and I think that's how we're a stronger guild now.
Right, she encouraged you to build your guild relationship and your teamwork together, because that was a struggle in the free wilds. The fight and the coordination was just a little off. While traveling to the site, you had a companion by your side, a girl named Cypher, although more formally named Sylphia Valentrio. Could you tell me a little bit about her?
I knew her from school. She's this punk inventor and has a bit of an edgy personality, but she means well.
Right. How did she end up finding her way onto your ship and coming with you into the free wilds?
Well, we had a guild member, Komarebi, who could hear her, so he was maybe our medium.
I see. So she's some sort of, almost like a spirit, like a ghost then.
More like a phantasm, I think I would describe it as.
And as she journeyed with you into the free wilds, and as you walked alongside each other, you recognize that you've spent so many years apart and there was a beautiful reunion. But that soon was to be broken, as she saw the current elder priestess at the time, Senna, laying ill on her deathbed, suffering from a terrible terminal illness called magicule dystrophy. As she lay there, Cypher looked upon her with Sylphia, looked upon her with compassion and thought that she could cure her of her ailment by sacrificing her own life energy, possessing her, so to speak. How did that end up playing out?
Well, let's just say my childhood friend, her brother, intervened, using his Valentrio network to boost some signals, and yeah, that didn't go so well. But it lined up with the quest that you were talking about in the Guild Rush.
Right. He actually managed to recall her from the Free Wilds place and actually experimented various noises too high-pitched for the human ear to hear in Labrassian City, taking her back to Castella and experimenting onto her. And there were phenomena during Anima Day of her presence actually being broadcast through the network, and some of it is actually being seen by the guild known as One Way Road during the Anima Day event. There were breakouts and a trouble with an individual known as the Doppelganger before the concert that would host the return of Grand Jure, one of the city's most renowned artists. Well, previously most renowned. Now I'm more into underground rap, like from Shockwave. Do you like Shockwave?
Oh yeah, don't get me started.
Great. But during that time in the Free Wilds, you had a little realization, didn't you, about your friend Aaron Valentrio and what had actually happened to Sylphia Valentrio, his sister. Do you want to talk a bit about that?
Yeah, it was a long time coming. Aaron, he would lock himself in his lab, researching, trying to save her, but pushed everyone away in the process.
And some incredible condition had come over Sylvia? Was she unable to sleep?
Yeah, sometimes for days. Insomnia got pretty bad. She would often faint in really bad situations, and crossing the road one day, yeah.
I see, she must have collided with a vehicle and soon became deceased. But Aaron had a solution to that problem. What was it?
His research into that noise.
He invented a special noise that actually picked up details and similarities from an ancient Free Wilds melody. And using that specific noise sequence, he began to play it in front of Sylvia's deceased body, turning her spirit into a solid phantasm, as you were describing earlier. But this form wouldn't last. He'd save his sister from temporary death, but eventually this phantasm would dissipate, and it would not stay intact. But he had another plan, and on the outskirts of Castella City, Aaron experimented on noises, just like the one he used to save his sister, but this time he was looking for something a little more permanent. Amidst the noise experiments was another sinister experiment, so to speak, brewing under the surface of Castella City. A guild known as Polar Star introduced their new member Isaac Lickfield into their ranks, where he would stay for some time before witnessing an incredible and terrible incident of his friend Kiara being brutally murdered by an official guild. His response to this was a justified one, as he converted from a guild in the light into joining a guild in the dark, known as Covenant Compass. This guild would remain active in Castella City until only a few days later. But you guys have successfully made it with the help of some friends from the Free Wilds into the Valentrio Tower, where you participated in an experiment. While you guys were entering and participating in this trial, you faced various challenges and problems, and eventually you met someone who could help you, becoming almost a accomplice of some kind. His name was Fujimaru Faizon, or just Faizon. Could you tell me a little bit more about him?
Yeah, he was very calculated, said a lot of jargon that we didn't really understand. And he was quite closed off, but I think he's friends with Katie. Or contacts, at least.
Right. And he eventually helped you, but until you got to the destroyed room, with the massive machine known as the Destroyer, which you eventually left and let you guys defend for yourselves. The Valentrio Industries has a specialized basement section, which not only conducts itself as a testing room, but also as a jail cell, where you guys managed to end up after escaping from the Destroyer. There you figured out that the one in charge was indeed your childhood friend, Aaron Valentrio. And after escaping through the vents of the compound, you managed to find him and challenge him on his ideals and beliefs. Tell me a bit about how you found Aaron in his state, and how you managed to convince him.
Well, I didn't do it by myself. I had Infernia behind me. I asked him to, you see. And Aaron, he had gone too far. I had to stop him.
Stop him you did. Aaron Valentrio defeated. He would soon stop his experiments both on the people that he got downstairs, but also the people that were running his clinical drug trial, his noise trial, and also on random networks in Liberacian City, as well as around Castella City. But it was not that simple. You see, one of your members with you, his name was Jason Denmark at the time, actually turned out to be a Dark Guild member of Coven Compass, known as Jaden Cross. He would eventually steal the key needed to host the program, now the Phantasm known as Sylvia. Consider her more like a Google Drive of sorts, needing his data to produce Operation Dream Noise, a specific operation that would balance the scales of power. And this operation was decided by Coven Compass's board, the 4 directions, cardinal directions, including their boss member, Cardinal. This operation would initially wipe all magic from a certain proximity around Castella City, but eventually, after figuring out that that wasn't possible, she would lead instead to give magic to everyone involved. However, there was a chance that people, instead of receiving magic, would instead go into comatose, also face incredible pain, seizures, as well as death. You guys managed to make your way in to overcoming Coven Compass themselves, but there was a little procedure beforehand. You see, Infernia has this classified document known as the Darklight Initiative, which gives them the ability, and they are the only guild to be able to recruit Dark Guild members as if they were on parole. You want to share about your thoughts on the Darklight Initiative?
Yeah, I think everyone deserves second chances, In fact, we have a member right now who's under that. Isaac.
Of course, after this incident, Isaac would eventually join Infernia as one of your guild members. But during it, your task was to secure one of the people that were actually written in the initiative. A sister of your member, Jasmine, Julia Johnson, head of Coven Compass. Eventually, you'd fight many trials, and you would cross many boundaries in order to stop them. Descending into the Castella Underground, you guys faced with the devious drug master himself, Caleb Moore. Tell me more about how he was like.
Well, he had a very fancy office inside of sewers that played classical music, and he talked like a douche.
Indeed. We have reports that he is selling drugs to individuals by the minute. One of the richest people in all of Costello City's underground, if not in Costello total. But then you fought a much more devious opponent that was not simply all about money. In fact, you've come many of the horrors in the Costello underground. There are rumors that people who can go into the underground have incredible nightmares, and they never stop as long as they live. This sounds terrible, but one of the rumors is that it leads to an individual codenamed Evermore. I heard that you had an encounter with her. What was that like?
It was like living in a dream, constant nightmare. That's probably one of the toughest encounters we've had.
But one of your guild members, namely Komorebi, had saved you from this nightmare by sacrificing most of his magic to help you deal the final blow and regain your senses before perishing his current form. Tell me more about this sacrifice by Komorebi.
I remember he said, as he was glowing before fading away, that he was going to leave it to me.
And taking up another sword into your arsenal, carrying another burden, you managed to make your way into the compound where you face Julia and your previous guild member, now known as Jaden. The fight was intense, with Julia using her magic to control not only your bodies, but your minds. And as you wrestled for control, she eventually succumbed to the dragon god within Jasmine, who had been keeping it a secret this whole time. Could you explain a bit more, talk a bit more about that moment?
Everything was in slow motion. I remember Jasmine, she casted this enchantment. The words were amazing, but the result, yeah.
Soon, Julia Johnson fell, with your efforts coming to fruition. You've stopped a dark guild, and surely the council and the guild committee would recognize your efforts. But some of you didn't. That left a bitter taste somewhere around. In fact, eventually Julia Johnson would become resuscitated, revived even, with the help of Sylvia Valentria, whom she had originally captured. But having compassion on her captor, Sylvia gave her life, so to speak, to power Julia's heart and body, so that she could remain living, if not more, as under one of the things called pacemakers. Tell me more about this exchange between Sylvia and Julia.
Well, it was just like in the Free Wilds with Senna. This time, no one to stop her. I tried, but it ended up well. We managed to convince Jasmine's sister to see another side to her ideals.
And she eventually joined your guild, is that correct?
Yeah, especially with the help of Isaac.
Who had been one of the members under her command for some time. Seeing Isaac change a new leaf maybe also persuaded her that her heart could also be changed, and willing to hope in that promise, she joined Infernia. I remember Julia Johnson's story as a girl who was burned in the fire, setting fire to her own building, her own house and family, because she thought it was hopeless, succumbing under darkness. By turning a new leaf, she joined Infernia under the premise of the Dark Light Initiative. But it was immediately after that you guys were tasked with another special mission: to retrieve a special object that could only be interacted with by celestial mages. Hanako was needed once again, and you guys headed to the nearby desert of near Liber Myrte to back up a few enforcers. Could you tell us a bit more about this mission?
Yeah, actually, Hizashi's sister, Winter. She was the one who contacted us after our interrogation from the Dark Guild encounter.
And she helped you to secure this mission, as well as guided you through the expedition into Liber Muerta. Finding out that there was indeed an underground movement, not by the Liber Muertans, but by a special, unofficial guild and a group known as Everlight or Everlux, who were trying to revive people, or a specific individual known as Suzuki Mori, one of their friends. But this revival had terrible consequences that they did not know of, because in their gathering of these magical crystals which they would need to revive her, they unleashed an ancient horror of the past. A demon, a vampire queen known as Desmodeus, along with her thousands of vampire troops, tens of thousands in fact, that would eventually swarm Librassian City. But there was hope as well, for someone human had been entrapped alongside them, a vampire slayer known as Elianir. Just tell me a little bit more about you guys meeting her, and what was she like?
Yeah, she was old. She was definitely old. The way she spoke, and the way her mannerisms. But she did have one thing, and that was determination.
And determined she was, determined to help you and stop the vampire threat. You guys would eventually go on to return to Librassian City by helicopter and defend it against the hordes of vampires that were swarming it, along with the help of many valiant guilds and also the enforcers and hex hunters. This situation was eventually stopped. And during the Eclipsia, the event that happens once every 1,000 years or so, where dead souls get a chance to return back to their ethereal forms and see the world just for a little bit, where the moon comes close enough to the planet in order for their souls to travel to it with celestial magic. There was a moment where the Lumina of Heaven, one of the priestesses of the old times, summoned her warriors, the members of Elianir's previous guild, in order to stop Desmodeus and her army. Was there anything striking for you about this guild, known as the Venator?
I think the main thing was just how happy they were that the liberation came to be, you know?
Indeed. And one of them, in fact, maybe even two of them, were considered your ancestors. Did you have a chance to talk to them?
Yeah, the girl with black hair with the cream highlights. Kinda looks like me a little bit. I talked to her for, a few words, but it was nice.
And soon they said farewell alongside our previous antagonist, Walpurgisnacht. Although his farewell as Weiss happened to be a little bit somber, and perhaps he had a change of heart somewhere along the way. He disappeared along with all the other vampires because he himself was a vampire. And saying goodbye, you guys moved on to a new phase. Returning to Librassian City, you guys got new clothes and journeyed with each other for 3 weeks, trying to pack a lot of things into almost a break of sorts, as the Librassian City grinded back into gear after the vampire attack. What do you think of your new attire as you went shopping, Sierra?
Oh, it's kinda cool, I guess. It's whatever. Isaac, he picked it out.
Aha. I see. I think it looks good on you. But during that attack in the mall after you went shopping, there were these mysterious fire people full of blue flames. And you guys had assistance not only from civilians such as Tane and Wahine, but also from another liberator, one called Aegis, or Anastasia Popov, alongside a mysterious hooded figure. It was later on, until during some more quests that you undertook, that you managed to meet them properly. During the auction house quest that you guys undertook, you guys managed to save rare monsters. Although they were classified as monsters, they were really magical creatures that could not legally belong to anyone at the time due to legal difficulties. However, you guys managed to rescue them from somewhat of a gray area situation with the help of Anastasia, also known as Agent. During this incident, you managed to meet her for the first time. What was she like?
I was, with the Guildmaster Alexis on the day, and, yeah, she was pretty heroic, honestly.
A paladin in shining armor of sorts. And there we can see one of the rescued magical creatures who used to belong to a previous guild member of Infernia, Suzuki, Hanako's sister. But now Hanako picked it up from her bigger sister, and it serves her today. However, this did not come without its fair course of promotion, and she had to secure it from a secured enforcer facility in Company. After another quest helping a local band sort out their warehouse, you guys went back to the night and celebrated an evening together. Alexis claims that this had been one of the most memorable and most populated the guild had ever gotten in these recent times. You reflect about your thoughts on this night.
Yeah, I remember joining Infernia, and there was only like 5 people in the hall at all times. Not even all times, mostly empty. But that day it was filled with laughter and people. It was great.
But these times were not last, as you guys went on another quest the next day, the quest to slay goblins. And as you went on the quest to slay goblins, you managed to successfully take down not 1 but 2 goblin kings. However, as you came back, you found your guild in a state of disarray. In fact, it had been completely destroyed from an unknown incident that occurred. Many bystanders believe that it had been the cause of a natural gas leak or an experiment that originated from technological issues in the basement. But eventually, you guys managed to find out that there was a slightly different story behind the scenes. What is that story?
Well, we met this Kimonokan with the Goblin Kings. Her name was Rune. She said that Infernia was no more. And when we returned, it rained. And our guild hall was destroyed.
And after the guild hall was destroyed, you guys managed to figure out, almost, what caused it? Would you like to elaborate on that?
Thunder Garden. The place where we got our clothes, and where a member we've been seeing, Maya, comes from.
You're saying another guild has threatened and even destroyed your guild hall?
Well, we suspect.
If they did, that sounds like an incredible crime against another fellow guild, and one that can certainly be punishable by law. What are your feelings towards them at this time, and how would you like to respond?
Well, they've got another thing coming, because fire never dies.
Right, as they harbor particular animosity towards Infernia, I hope we'll see you fight back against them, and look forwards to justice being distributed as it ought to be. And speaking of looking forwards, we have a wonderful new announcement that I wonder what the future of Infernia will look like. Please join with me as we look at the new Season 2 opening of Infernia, Trail by Fire.
Just give me a reason to keep my heart beating. Don't worry, it's safe right here in my arms. As the world falls apart around us, all we can do is hold on. Hold on. Take my hand and bring me back, yeah.
Hey, Sierra? What do you think the image of a liberator is, anyway?
I don't think you realize how painful this is. Do you?
Irene, can you pass the stuff? I'm sorry, Venus, we're out. What do you mean we're out? Well, we can't be. Call Katie then.
Fight me! Kill me! Somebody save me!
Listen to me!
Indeed, the image of liberation will take place in 25 AL. That's the year of the Purge. The year is 25 AL. The Purge begins soon as the Liberation Alliance of United Races ties up its loose ends on beginning this special operation. A united and somewhat secretive nationwide counteroffensive against Dark Guilds. A clash of ideals and desires sets ablaze as a teen from Dragonheart Junior College is caught up in a Dark Guild conspiracy, with now ready to available over-the-counter CMDA variant, a narcotic drug hitting the streets of lore. Research and production on a cure for Sylvia Valentrio's condition, the daughter of the CEO of the most renowned technological conglomerate in all of lore, begins to tear down a desperate scientist, as his endeavors have come up short from a previous expedition. His research begins to take him into the depths of an eyes-only document for a Hex Hunter division named Shiva. With the impending purge of Dark Guilds and havoc of CMDA running the streets, Count Ortwin also comes under fire, as pressure from the public builds on a young Regalia to be ready for his synchronization with his Meister for the Council's directive. As all these strings tie and gather around one another, all threads lead to the same place, the image of liberation. The image of liberation is a special sub-campaign of Infernia that will take place within the next 6 sessions. That's right, we have 6 sessions under a new directive and under a new time and a new place, but the same old place actually, in Liberacian City. It'll feature 6 playable characters as we explore their troubles of youth, as well as encounter powers that may change the course of the entire country. Sierra, would you like to introduce us to some of these characters? Let's start with your friend, Katie Lord.
Oh, yeah, sure. Katie, she's this super genius who's a bit of an idiot. Back then, she had a lot of drug troubles and seemed to have gotten herself into some Dark Guild antics. But, looking forward to see how she's gonna go with that.
Right. And with her new unofficial boyfriend, Arthur, and your help, she's managed to break out of most of those tendencies, although she's still a part-time drug addict. And recently, she's been caught up in some Dark Guild matters. So we'll see how that unravels in her story. But more on to you, Sierra Ortwin, the one of 5 years ago. Would you care to explain a bit more about how you were back then?
Oh, me? No. I'm sure you already know who I am.
Well, since before the liberation, there were rumors of warriors who could transform into weapons and form bonds with wielders. They were known as Regalia. Nowadays, the most famous, and the only known, Regalia family are called the Ortwin clan. Infamous for Charlemagne Ortwin, the lance wielded by one of the heroes of the liberation, and your very own mother, Sierra. But as the time came for you to take the reins of your destiny, well, run from it or take it by storm.
Oh, we'll see.
But But surely you can introduce us to your cousin, Arthur Ortwin.
Yeah, prodigy of the Ortwin clan. Back then, he had a lot of burden on his shoulders for both the Ortwins and the Traegers. And, well, he was selected to be the Divine Regalia, this sort of position for our clan. It's like the leading sword for the problems in lore.
But he's been caught up in a scandal with a certain drug addict unofficial girlfriend just before his official Ortwin ceremony. That is scandalous, and I'm curious to see how this story will play out. But more on to another character, Sylphia Valentrio, once your childhood friend, and soon turned into ghost phantom-like being. Tell me, what was Sylphia like back then, before she had her accident?
Well, when the insomnia first started to come, she was irritable and a little bit more cynical. But she was quick on her feet, and pretty smart too.
But as the insomnia-like disease threatens to be uncurable, it puts more of a burden on not only her, but her brother, who's been trying to make it his life's goal to save his sister from her insomnia, as well as her death. Sylvia's brother, Aaron Valentrio, another one of your childhood friends. Would you care to talk a bit more about him?
Yeah, before he got really serious about Valentrio Industries funding the Dream Noise project, he would work in his little laboratory by himself as a smaller project. I suppose it's the origin of how he became how he was when we met him again.
Indeed, he was working hard to save his sister, perhaps disregarding everything else to do so. A self-proclaimed scientist, even though he was only 11th grade. He'd mastered the art of manipulating little nanobots to do his fieldwork. And speaking of fieldwork, another agent of the field, although in the monetary and financial side, is Akatsuki Fingari, one of the daughters of the Fingari Exports franchise, a large trade company at the time, and now proven to be, over the course of time, 5 years later, the largest trading company in all of lore. What was she like back then?
Well, she was pretty much the same, chummy and maybe a little bit of a scam artist, but she's always had that sweet inside about her. Hopefully she does okay.
Seems like the story of you and your friends, at least your accomplices, will take a turn for the worse as they figure out what really lies behind the image of liberation. I can't wait to see what happens in this special campaign that takes place over the next 6 sessions of Infernia. Also, we have word from the DM that it's going to be his best campaign yet, so stay tuned. Well, I'm really excited to bring that to you, and all this news reported to you on behalf of 5 News. But before I leave, I will leave you with one last thing. A very short teaser for the up-and-coming Image of Liberation. Let's see it.
Checking facts first. Unfortunately, some members of the community use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think, and this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
Well, that was certainly an exciting and provocative teaser. I can't wait to see just what kind of dark evil secrets we can uncover with all of these things that leads to this image of liberation. But that's all the time we have today for the Infernianniversary Livestream, folks. We hope to see you next week. This has been me from 5 News, Daniel McLaren, and my partner,
Sierra Owen, see you there.
and we'll see you in 2 weeks.